Kripa gasped as he tugged on to Kalki, pulling him away. You can't see this, I have to kill him, he said. His mind had wandered to the time he had the racing contest with Bala. Lakshmi would have hated Kalki now that he had let her aunt die as well. All the deaths were now weighing him down. You will, but everyone recognizes you. Come with me, he pushed him away from the crowd. Kalki pushed the old man away. You don't get it. I have to kill him now. Kripa remained there, not even moving. And then what? Get caught again like last time, when you went all heroically in front of Duruti? Do you want to get trapped again, stuck in that vicious cycle, and keep having us free you? There is no way anymore, a voice came from behind. Oh, for the love of the gods, Kripa grunted. Kalki turned to face a tall, agile girl with shrewd eyes and silvery hair. She had a pale and drawn face. As she came forward, Kalki realized she had been crying. It shouldn't have happened. I told him it was a bad idea, but he didn't listen. Padma said, what do you mean? Kalki was panting now. Arjun followed me to Vedanta's palace. Her voice was quite no, gasped Kalki. His nightmares were coming true. Did he die as well? I don't know. She began to cry again. Kalki grabbed her by the shoulders, squeezing them tightly, making her wince. How do you not know if he died or not? I couldn't see. She choked. Leave her, yelled Kripa, grabbing Kalki's hand, and who felt a force come over him. He left Padma. She lay there mutely on the ground. Kalki looked up. From afar he could see hoofs throwing up dust in the air. It was the Manav soldiers. We need to leave now. Fast, Kripa urged. I can't. I have to check if he's okay. He is dead, yelled Kripa. All right? Arjun is dead, Bala is dead, and Ratri is dead, and if you stay here longer we will all die as well. Now I know you don't like either of us, but we need to leave, all of us, mate. I know you want to kill Kali. He did all of this, and I agree with you. He clasped Kalki's face, and for a moment, Kalki felt he was looking at him like a son. But you can't let the Rukti's episode happen again. You can't go there and get caught, getting imprisoned. You will return after learning the ways of the worthy, and you'll be able to defeat the Adharam. But for that, we need to leave. You need to move on. If something happens to me, Arjun had said to him. No. Kalki chose to believe that Arjun was alive and well, and he would be out there surviving somehow. Shuko had been flapping his wings, confused, until Kalki realized that he had let his anger control him, and he had to calm down. Shuko sat back on his shoulder again. Will you come with us? Kripa asked Padma. Kalki looked at Padma, and both of them shared a look of guilt and embarrassment before she agreed. She wiped her tears. Kalki felt guilty for hurting her, but only for a split second. I will go with you, she said. Kalki suspiciously eyed her, but chose not to speak just then. He was overwhelmed by grief and anger. The people of the city were watching as the Manav soldiers got closer. Let's go, Kripa offered him his hand. How do we? He tried to find words. How do we escape? I have got some horses lying from a friend in the city. He'll get us the transport. Kalki nodded, taking the old man's hand, and looked at his broken, new team of people. He looked at the man he couldn't trust and the woman who had left his brother to die, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for a journey with them. But he had no choice. For weaklings and traitors, death was the only path. When it came to Kali, he didn't care about them. They were worse than the scum of this land, thrown and pitted against each other. They suffered the most they should. He hated them. What he did to Kalki's accomplices was exactly what they deserved, and perhaps even more, if he had the time. But he had to leave. People were gathering, and it was not a nice image to see their new king be a killer in the streets. They had to respect him after all. Durukti deserved the same fate, but she was his sister. The blood between them stopped him from doing anything. But he knew what he had to do with her. He would keep her in control with Simran, her handmaiden, who be his spy. He had given her gold to speak to him whenever Durukti was a nuisance or tried to do something. But softness and tenderness crushed him whenever he saw her face. Now, as he stood there, in her room, he asked her, would you come for the coronation? He didn't have to try so hard in getting the crown from Vedanta. The Naga leaders were dead, except Mansa, about whose death he and lied about it. She wouldn't be returning for show. Vedanta was afraid, and Kali intended to feed on this fear. Durukti was sitting on the windowsill, looking at the stars. Why is your chest bloody? Kali was so muddled up in his thoughts. He had forgotten about his disheveled frame. I was handling some business. Did you kill him? She asked. Surely. She spoke of him. Kalki, the mysterious villager from Shambhala. Just because of that, Kali wanted to burn down the village. But then he hadn't lost all sense of reasoning. Yes, he lied. She turned. There was no sympathy in her eyes. Good. What happened to you? I just thought he was a different person. But he's not. Kali walked over to her close as he clasped her hands. She looked at him sternly, brows arched high. I apologize for my actions recently. Kali sighed. I was hurt and angry. Martanja had a way of influencing people. He convinced me that you were lovers with him. You should care more about the city than my life, but your life is important to me. Kali wanted to hug her, but he held back. No matter how distant they had grown, he still loved her, and he knew she loved him back. Despite the hatred what had gotten into you. Some people bring out the worst in you, he spoke. Regarding Kalki, he was too strong for his own sake, just like how Kali was. Perhaps he had been subjected to the Soma as well. Each one of us has a dark side, and it comes out eventually. It's not planned. He tightened his hand around her, but some people also bring the best out in you. I don't want to lose you because of our recent squabbles. You had your own right to do what you wanted. Durupti clenched her teeth and slapped him as hard as she could. Kali took it calmly, sighing, I deserved that. You don't own me. Rather, you're damn well right, you deserved it. Does that mean you forgive me? She looked at him for a moment. Kali came forward, embracing her, and for a while she didn't reciprocate, until she hugged him back in relief. He pulled back, looking at her with wistful eyes. Would you come for my coronation? Do I have a choice? Kali knew exactly what to say to appease her. Yes, you do. You don't have to if you don't want to. A smirk pulled up her cheek. I will. He wasn't sure she meant it or if things were back to normal, but at least the facade of it was. He couldn't revel in it for long since a voice came from behind him. My lord, the men from the keep have returned from the infirmary and are waiting for you. Coco's familiar voice spoke the word keep. Alarmed, Durupti, what have you done with the medicine I brought for you? My dear, he dexterously ran his fingers over her collarbone. They were not just mere medicines. And sadly, they have been destroyed. She raised her brows. What do you plan to do? Search for more? Kali hadn't thought of that. Each part of his body felt more than better. He hadn't felt fitter in his life, and it had crossed his mind to travel in search for more. But then did he need it? He had kept a pouch of it, just in case his illness returned. But for now, he was content. I'm a king, sister. I have better things to worry about. He slowly kissed her on the cheek. Thank you for everything. Without you, there is no me, he whispered, and he meant it. Kali left the grand room, glancing at Simran, who was making her way in. They shared a look before Kali left with Coco and Vikoko towards the main chambers near the fort's garden, where he had impaled the propagandist. He reached and found 5 men, bandaged and standing calmly, with their arms at the back. More guards from his fort were standing guard behind them. They all looked worried. Kali saw they all were Rakshas, Martanja's men, who were supposed to keep the Somas safe. Do you remember? He began, walking calmly back and fro as he saw their huge, injured bodies. Who those culprits were? All of them shook their head to say no. Can you recognize any one of them if they return? He played with his fingers, looking at his nails, pairing them against each other. One of them nodded his head. Stand in front. The Rakshas did. What is your name, son? Pradm. Kali nodded. Man had a huge gash in his chest, which was festering. Would you manage to recognize them if they are back? Did you have a good look at their faces? Yes, my lord, Pradma said. Good. Kali turned to the others. Coco, Vikoko, kill them all. Pradma gasped. Coco and Vikoko, quick on their feet, slashed their heads. Some protested, but Kali's other guards stabbed and severed their torsos. Pradma watched in horror, while Kali shifted his gaze away from him. Don't worry, they were useless. Raktpa, your chief, would have mutilated them already if you returned to him like that. I did you all a favor. Pradma shivered, in spite being a big man himself. Something about Kali made even him afraid. But you won't go anywhere. Don't worry, you are going to stay right here, with me. Won't you? Pradma weakly nodded. Great. You are the new commander for the Rakshas force in the city. I will send a note to Rakpa telling him about your post and the circumstances surrounding it, but I'm just a soldier. He had a weak voice. That's just what I need. You are more than that. Son, he patted his chest, leaving Pradma in the midst of decimated Rakshas. And also he said without looking at Pradma's face, tomorrow is my coronation. Please make yourself available. Kali stood as Vedanta, the last king, came forward. He had a forced smile as he put down the crown over Kali's head. But it wasn't just the crown. He put several other pieces of jewelry over Kali, including rings, bracelets, and necklaces. Kali had a smirk. He had worn a robe made of silk and fur. Vedanta turned away, clapping, while a row of people, nobles, and aristocrats lined up to congratulate him. Kali turned to his right and watched Vedanta slowly clap with his daughter, who seemed like a problem at first sight. She didn't have the courtesy to clap, but rather had a frown on her face. Kali didn't mind the indecency. She was just a child, after all. He even saw Kuvera, giving his plastic grin, fake as ever. He was pleased, however, that Kali was able to defeat his arch-enemies, the Nagas. On the other end, he saw Durukti, who looked pleasant with Simran on her side. Behind Kali, Coco and Vikoko stood on opposite sides, standing still like devoted soldiers. Pradma was in the front with his Rakshas guards, kneeling down to their new king. Kali stood up to speak. I have been bestowed with this great duty by the people's man, the last king Vedanta. He was gracious enough to give me this opportunity, on seeing I had better and more progressive ideas to work with, and more so because he had threatened him for Urvashi's safety. I have thrown out the Naga tribe from our city. Many uproariously cheered that, and Kali had to calm them down. I sent them back to their home city, though it was a lie. He had put them in one place under the impression that Mansa had summoned them. And then, he had killed each one of the Nagas, with archers stationed nearby. Thus more Manav soldiers have been inducted, and we can restore status quo as best as we can. Everyone clapped. He had just waged a war with the other Nagas. But for now, he didn't care. He had broken his own pact, but that was the only way to stop all the feuds, enjoy the feast and the drinks and the women, of course, and here the Apsars entered, dancing in highly revealing clothes. Kali could see from the corner of his eyes that Durukti was feeling ashamed, while Vedanta grabbed Urvashi's hand and left from the place. It was a sight to behold. Kali sat on his throne, his hands dangling from the arms of his throne as he casually positioned himself. He had great plans for the city, but he wouldn't stop here. He'd go for the other ones. Now he was strong and he was back. Coco leaned forward, while Kali saw the nobles enjoying the sight of the prostitutes. My lord? Yes, Lord Vedanta has left. I know. Kali was dismissive. As you had placed your guards in his fort, they were quick to notice a familiar prisoner they had earlier seen. Familiar, you say? Kali raised his brows. Call him here. All right, my lord. And within moments, the prisoner was brought in with his head covered in a sack and hands tied by a tight rope. Kali drank his wine as he signaled the sack to be lifted. When the sack was removed, it revealed a familiar figure. With wounds across his body, the boy was the same one he had been seen during the trial, assisting Kalki's flight. Pradma, who was standing right there, ran instantly towards Kali and nodded. It's him, my lord. One of them, Kali sighed, walking clumsily and spilling his wine in the process as he came close to the prisoner. So you thought destroying my property would be a good idea? Pradma interjected. My lord, should I cut him open? No, that'll be too easy. He looked at the boy, patting him on the shoulder. We will have some fun with him. Death is too quick and too easy a punishment. What is your name, boy? The boy, instead of responding, spat on Kali. Kali wiped it off, watching the huge scar that ran across the boy's face. The name is Arjun, the boy began, and if you want to survive any longer, you should kill me right now. Kali liked him. Oh, he liked the boy already. He was fisty. We will see, boy, we will see. He wasn't dead. He knew that a boy like Kalki, splendidly powerful in his own right, couldn't die so easily. Kali wanted to make her believe this premise, perhaps trying to take away her hopes that there was a hero coming to save her. But Durukti didn't need a hero. She had to be careful. Regardless of Kalki leaving her with a stark raving madman, whom she once knew as her brother, she didn't hate Kalki. She had to show she hated him so that she could evade Kali's suspicions. He wasn't the same man anymore. He acted differently these days. He felt different too. And worst of all, he looked different. The once golden-eyed boy with wavy hair was replaced with a bald man, with skin that matched the color of coals. Was it the effect of the somas? Sure, she wished Kalki could have taken her away, and there was still a certain part within her that wanted to slap him. But he had a different path to go on, and she had a different path to travel. Couldn't force it on him. If there is one person who can help Kali right now, it is you. Save him. And change him if you can. Kalki had said to her our change was futile. Now chaos had engulfed Kali's mind. He had forced Vedanta down from the throne by threatening to kill Urvashi if he did not abdicate peacefully. Power had corrupted him to the core. Once he had wanted nothing but peace, but now Kali didn't care. He would crush and topple anyone who blocked his way. He had betrayed the very men he had entered into the agreement with. Turning acrimonious towards his own sister, Durukti didn't feel guilty. There was nothing she had done wrong, or at least she felt she hadn't. She wanted to run away, but escaping wasn't the answer. docile manipulators lifelong, and she planned to do that, and yes, she would try to change him while she stayed silent. Oh yes, she would. It hurt her to see him this way. It killed her every day. She wanted to go back and be with Kali in the way he used to be, away from the civilization in a happy ending that now seemed far-fetched. The skies offered nothing but darkness. The stars didn't glimmer. The winds were easy and light just softly coursing over her skin. The almost burnt-out candle made her realize that she had given her dress to Simran for washing, as she intended to wear it the next day. She left her chamber looking for Simran. She had been her trusted aide and friend for a while now, and even though Kali's transformation had begun after imbibing the somas, as suggested by her, she could have hardly known the effects it would have on Kali. She walked casually along the dark corridors. She hadn't seen Simran since the coronation. Oh, how awful it was, the coronation. Some were glad while most had openly hated Kali. He had made a lot of enemies. Today she saw some soldiers, Manas, who were standing and discussing with each other about the current king and how everything was disrupted in the current political milieu. On seeing Durukti, they shut up immediately. Durukti didn't pay heed to their nonsensical gossip. She came to the point. Have you seen my handmaiden? My lady, we last saw her in her room. One of them coughed up the answer. Durukti nodded as she left the men walking to Simran's quarter, which was away from the main building and inside the smaller one in Kali's fort. Durukti reached the corridor, which was curiously lacking guards. The walls were made of roughly hewn stone, while the floor was covered with the lingering shadows that appeared from the fire lamps that lit the pathway on both sides. She finally reached Simran's room when she heard something. There were voices. Surely one of them was Simran, but the other, it was strange sounding. It was of a man. So late at night? Simran hadn't told Durukti about any man in her life, and yet she didn't wait. She slowly pushed the door open and peered inside the room. It was dark, with only two small candles throwing weak light over the room. The windows were curtained and not much was visible, except Simran, who was kneeling down, her hands clasped together. Durukti couldn't open the door further, for if she did, Simran would get to know of her presence. Light illuminated Simran, with long fingers of shadow dancing on her pale skin. The energy or the power coming off from the man, or whatever it was, had a certain aura. Durukti wanted to see who it was, and it was her every right, but she wanted to hear what they were talking about first. Good work, my child, the voice spoke, sounding like it belonged to an old man, and yet there was a tangible youthful inflection and cadence to it. Thank you, master. Simran lowered her head. Everything worked out as per the plan. The white horse is on his way to the north with your uncle. Indeed, the voice rasped. It's like dominoes. You hit one and everything falls in place, just like how you told me to tell Durukti about that story of my so-called father and the man who was looking for his wife's cure. Yes, it worked, didn't it? He paused. It wasn't the story. However, it surely worked. She grinned. Who was that man, master? Who else? Kalki's father. You met him? A voice quipped. Of course. The shadows flickered. It was me who forced him to take the somas from the cave. Simran swallowed. Durukti could see that she was about to say something she would regret. I'm afraid, master, Simran began. I hope Kali didn't see me when I read the cards in the bazaar. Don't worry, you were disguised well, he said. But choose your assassins carefully next time. We were fortunate the Naga was killed before he could reveal who had hired him, but it worked in our favor. Vasuki was the casualty of the entire misunderstanding. The voice rasped. Do not be excited about death, Simran. What we do is for a bigger cause. Why don't you just help your uncle, master? After all, you both want the same thing. No, sadness corroded his tone. He didn't want this age to have a battle like last time, but I did. I have no choice, and now that I have triggered this, he has no choice but to do what he didn't want to do. Simran meekly nodded. You have been working really hard, master, from the time you poisoned Kali to get him ill so that Durukti wouldn't have any choice but to get the somas for him. Much before that, he paused, his voice wheezing. You can say I had molded both of them without them even knowing about it, but how did you know it was Kali who would be Adhan? I had used the eye of Brahma. I can see the past, the present and the future, and I saw what kind of chaos was to be brought on. Only an Adhan can do so, he said. I apologize, child, for I did not explain all of this to you before, since we did not have enough time, and also because I was uncertain whether you would give these details away. No, please, do not apologize, master, I beg of you. Though the eye. Simran's eyes widened with delight. Where is it? Master, not with me, as I am now waiting for the white horse. I had used it a long time back during the breaking to see if everything was in place, and I had seen glimmers of who would be Dharm and who would be Adharm in the future. Be careful, my lord, she pleaded. Do not worry, and Drupadi couldn't hold back any longer. She had to see the person who was manipulating everyone in the scene, causing everyone harm. She slowly opened the door further, carefully positioning her face and craning her neck forward so she saw the light which emanated from the man, but little could be seen of the man himself. He surely was a reflection. But how was he able to communicate then? What sorcery is this? And that's when she saw it. Regardless of the lack of clarity, there was one clear thing that struck out to Drupadi, causing chills to run down her spine. He had a scar across his forehead. To be continued.